and welcome to the very next episode of The Remedy with Tova Sido and
Janice Gaunt and
Tom Bridwell.
Yay! Hey, Tom.
I'm Tom.
Howdy. How y'all doing?
Good.
I guess we always say hi to you because we don't see you. I'm looking right at Janice. Tom's in a booth upstairs. We're in his bottom studio.
Yeah.
That's right.
He's
The
in his
drum
top
room.
studio.
The drum room. Oh, it's just the coolest place.
Did you guys have fun watching the Super Bowl last night?
Yes, I thought it was really fun.
I did too. What'd y'all think about Rihanna?
Well, she lip synced.
Did she?
Yeah. I just
You know,
heard
that's
him.
pretty common in those
I
size
know.
stadiums.
It would have to be.
I get. What is it? Sound control? What? Why?
It has to do with that. It's got to do with the delay in the speakers and from the microphone to the speakers, and
the
but also
acoustic?
it has to do with just if there's any. A lot of times the microphones will be on and they'll sing over a backing track, but there's always a backing track in that size venue, pretty much always.
Interesting. I thought last night, Tom will know about that.
My buddy Cass Haley sang the national anthem at AT&T Stadium for a Cowboy game one time, and they made him have a backing track for the national anthem.
Oh. He lip synced it?
He sang it, but there was also his voice singing it underneath. So if like the microphone crapped out or he dropped the microphone or if he fell over, you would hear his voice still singing. And he just sings on top of it. And he was made to do that. Like he didn't want to, but he didn't have a choice.
You know, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Because
for sure.
then you don't.
Well, there's a lot more control involved in that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I would think that, I don't know what I'm talking about. You would certainly understand it, Tom. But it makes sense that there could be so much outside noise or possible clankings or horns honking or.
I thought her presentation was really great. Those platforms that were suspended.
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
That was
wasn't that
breathtaking.
cool?
Yeah.
But the big news is that it was her first announcement that she was pregnant.
So I Googled.
But she's already had a baby.
She
Yes.
had a baby last May. So I Googled, is Rihanna pregnant?
Me too, during her
Did you?
Yeah.
I bet everybody, I didn't. So where was that announced, Tom?
Well, that was her announcing it because she kept it a big secret. Nobody had any idea. And so she comes out there and starts kind of rubbing her belly like that. And it's obvious that she's at least a few months along. But that was kind of her way. It was a really cool way of announcing it. Just
Super
showing
cool.
up to the Super Bowl and performing while you're pregnant. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
thought the same
I was
thing.
thinking maybe she had been, overdoing Twinkies or something like that. Because she always has a great body, but she was definitely.
So her baby's only 9 months old.
Yeah.
I was doing the math last night.
Yeah.
That's right.
Isn't that?
She and A$AP Rocky, the rapper, have a family.
I didn't know who the dad was. So it's somebody
A$AP.
named A$AP. I don't
A$AP
like
Rocky
as soon
and
as
the S
possible.
is with dollar signs.
Like as soon as possible. So does that mean money now?
I guess.
Am
I don't know how
figuring
guys
that
come up with their rap names.
I know.
I'm gonna come up
I
with
guess
a
I know how
rap
am
name.
too.
Biggie came up with his. That's pretty easy. He's big.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
I love Snoop
I'm
Dogg.
not sure what mine would be.
Who is your favorite Super Bowl halftime of all time? Do you have one?
No.
Mine was Prince.
Oh.
Because he performed. It was really bad weather. There was rain during the halftime performance.
So
he was
sang
playing
Purple
Rain as it was raining, and it was just the most epic performance.
Wow.
I loved him.
I'm going to have to Google that.
That would be fun
I
to
don't
There's
Google.
actually
remember
a
that.
small documentary about that performance, and everybody there said that he was the best guy to work for. He was super accommodating, friendly. And when they said, you don't have to do this, he was like, no, we're doing this. This is happening in the rain. Who gives a crap? It's happening.
Oh, I love that.
Super
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
What
I'm
year
gonna
was that,
put
Tom?
the Google on that, too.
I think it was 2007 because I had a Super Bowl party, and I'm pretty sure it was 2007.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great.
The one, my favorite that I remember is because I've watched every Super Bowl, but I don't remember Prince. But which is pretty crazy because he's unforgettable. He's pretty unforgettable. But my favorite was Justin Timberlake.
Oh yeah.
God,
I do love me some Justin Timberlake.
Who doesn't?
I think every guy wants to be him, and I think every girl wants to be with him.
Would you have sex with him, Tova, if he asked you?
No.
Do you believe that, Tom?
Everybody has one hall pass.
If I could have a hall...
Well, that
I'm
kind
thinking
of
of all the people that listen to this.
and this is kind of on topic.
Yeah. Are you getting us in the mood, Janice?
I am.
So, yeah. Yeah. Have you ever counseled somebody whose spouse gave them a hall pass?
Yes.
That's not what we're talking about
Yes,
today.
I have. Yes.
Seriously?
Yes. I've counseled several people,
And
who
they were
they've
like,
given
if
one
you-
another hall passes.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
And did it work out?
Yeah. I mean, and they're like, what do you think? And I said, well, as long as you're both in full agreement. And, I said, it'd be kind of hard. I don't think I would do that. But if you come, I mean, as long as you negotiate it, and it is really amazing what people will negotiate sexually in their relationships.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And my approach is it wouldn't work for me.
Right.
But if it's full disclosure and you both agree that it's going to be acceptable, then you can do whatever you want. You're grown-ups.
Right. No, I definitely agree with that. But have you seen that backfire?
I don't, not that I remember. Wow. But I'm sure that it does sometimes, because then you might want a little more of that. I mean, one hall pass.
Yeah, I want to scratch that itch. And then now I want to scratch this itch.
And then your brain goes to that instead of your partner. So we'll talk about this today. We're going to actually talk about keeping your sex life spicy.
That would definitely do it.
Or ruin it.
Yeah,
I can't
that would not work for me.
That. I can't.
I would throw up at the thought of that.
Yeah,
in my relationship.
Oh, I could not. I wouldn't.
I would have bathroom problems for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I would not. No, it wouldn't work for me at all. I don't. But I mean, I've had several people who have invited another woman into their bedroom, and then and the woman has watched, and anyway, that's which that I wouldn't do that either. Just FYI.
No, I mean, I know that there are people who do that, and I don't even have any judgment around it.
No, me neither.
Like I really think, like you said, as long as you're communicating, and it is to each their own. And I'm sure because my bent is pastoral counseling, people are probably not going to be totally comfortable. I can tell that people have a difficult time talking to me about sex.
I can understand that. Yeah, and there are I know of 3 swingles groups in Dallas that I've had clients that participate and go on vacation with different groups of people, like 6 couples, and there's some shifting around and mixing and matching and all that.
Wait, does swingles mean that they're single but dating somebody, but they're swingers?
They're swingers.
Okay,
so it's swingles. That's what the individuals are swingers, but they're not. But they're in. But they're in relationships.
So if they're in a relationship and they're swingers, it's now called a swingle?
Well, that's just what the groups are called, swingle groups.
Oh, okay.
So then that's kind of if you like, I have a client who years ago she saw that her husband had been texting with somebody about that. It was a guy, but he was trying to get my client and her husband to come and join the group, but they're definitely out there. And
yeah, nobody's talking to me about that.
No, man. Well, they're talking to me about it, but they're not inviting me.
You and Tom. to come play.
No. Oh, that would just be terrible.
I don't think
me.
I'd ever be the same. I think it would damage me in such a way. Like, I'm not Mormon anymore, but
I'm Baptist, but not anymore.
yeah, you're not Baptist anymore.
I can't even let my brain go there.
Yeah.
I can't even.
But like, I wonder what is it that would, I'm not saying I'm right, but I'm just saying, like, I have such a visceral personal reaction to that. Like, I can't imagine in what arena or what headspace would I have to get in order to be okay with that?
Well, one of my clients, she and her husband were having some difficulties. And so...
Sexually or
sexually,
just as a couple?
Sexual difficulties. And she was quite a bit younger than he was. And then they brought in another woman to see if that could kind of, help him maintaining an erection. And she was okay with it because she wanted him to be able to do that and then to get an erection so she could have sex with him and blah, 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 blah. So, so it's interesting because there is, you would be surprised how much of that goes on because of dysfunction or because there are people, men in particular, but there's some women too who just don't want monogamy. They want something different to add to it. They don't leave their partners for it, but they want it so that they think it's going to enhance their relationship. I always tell them too. I will always say, there is a definite possibility and could even be a probability that there's going to be some resentment after a while, especially if one of the either the man or the woman really likes being with somebody else. Sure. Then that
how would you be okay with that? That'd be impossible for me.
No, well, the whole thing would be impossible for me. There's under no circumstances would that work for me.
Yeah,
but it does for some people. Yeah. So it's interesting, and it's kind of fun to talk with people about it because it's just so different,
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. I was talking to my brother this morning about a client that I had this morning. And I was telling him a little bit about of course, I never say names. No. He would never know anything about any of the people personally, but I was telling him the story that she told me. And he was like, I am so jealous of your job. And I was like, you should be, because and then the flip side is you're helping people, what we do, I really believe what we do enhances people's lives.
Yeah,
and makes their better, you know, or else don't come.
Yeah.
But it is such a privilege and it is such a learning experience because so many of, the girl that I had this morning, she's a college student. And college students these days are living a completely different life than when we went to college.
Yeah.
With social media and with phones and with the way how fraternities and sororities and mixers and sex and everything's changed. The internet, accessibility, even just Ubers, it's the access, and their life is so different than our college experience. It's so fascinating.
Yeah.
But I think that's a big part of why you and I love what we do, because we are so fascinated by people's stories.
Yeah.
And we want to see them, their lives get happier.
Yeah. When I am seeing some couples that are doing some extracurricular activities with other couples, and they say to me, do you what's your take on all of that? And I will say it is not in my value system, certainly not in my value system, but your value system is not my business, and I do not have judgment about it. It just would not work for me.
Right.
And then I can talk with them about what's the risk involved in some of those behaviors. And sometimes it does end up blowing up, and a couple won't be able to maintain their relationship because of that. So it's a slippery slope, I think, for most people.
Yeah.
But it's not what a lot of people would think of are just like, I don't know, like people that are. These are people that are at the Tom Thumb with you.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, these are mainstream people, some of them, you know.
It's kind of like anything, you know, like I think we assign like domestic violence to a certain type of
a demographic.
And yet when I worked at the church at Highland Park, there were just as much, if not more, than anywhere else. I mean, it doesn't have a zip code.
No.
So I believe that. I believe that there's just a lot of stuff going on, and with a lot of people that we would be just shocked. So we have to thank our sponsor, and then we'll get into our. We'll get into exactly what we're talking about today, which is sex. But David Tutts is our sponsor. He is a listener from Colorado.
Nice.
And he's a big fan. This is like the third time he's given.
Oh, my gosh.
I know. He's so
How many men do we have
lovely.
donate?
It's probably 5-1.
Yeah.
But I sure love when they do.
Oh, I just love that there are men that listen to it.
I do too. And, you know, I have to say, I really appreciate when we get feedback. I have to share this text message because you will really appreciate it. I got this text this morning. Where is it? Well, here it is. I won't say what her name is. She said, I don't know if you remember me, but we met a while back when I was still in high school. At that time, I was struggling a lot, and I had no idea where I stood in my faith. Everything that was being presented to me felt so black and white and made me feel like I had to constrain myself in order to be loved by God or live the right way. I just wanted to tell you that I listen to your podcast often, and the work that you and Janice are doing is so impactful. I just listened to your Seeing Gray in a World Full of Black and White episode. I mean, that was like back in the day. That was before you.
Oh, my gosh.
And I just know conversations like that are going to free so many people. It saddens me that so many people in the church use scripture to shame people and cut people off from the love. But just know that what you and Janice are doing is so important and has given me permission to be a person of faith without the fear of doing it wrong. Thank you for using your words to show people the true light of Jesus.
I love that. That's so nice.
I mean, I really appreciate when people tell us things.
Me too.
And so, and because you're listening to this, you've had to like find the new episodes, which I know a lot of people have reached out to me on how to do that. But if you will please rate us, because we've got to start over since we're on a new feed.
Yeah.
If you guys that are listening will please rate us and leave a 5 stars. Anything less, don't bother. And leave comments because that will bump us up in the Apple feed.
Great. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
That's good.
So thank you to all of our listeners, all of our sponsors. We make it really easy to get involved and support what we're doing. You can Venmo at Tova Sido, or you can go to tovasido.com.
Yay.
Thank you. Okay, so I thought that it might be a good idea for us to talk about how to spice up your sex life when it feels like it's getting a little stale, it's getting a little routine, you're not as excited about it anymore, and you just need a little injection, no pun intended. in the bedroom, a little igniting.
Yeah.
I know for a lot of people, and a lot of people, and most of them have been married for a while, and they just find themselves in a routine where they have sex the same time every day, or they tend to do sex the same, whether it's the same time, the same positions, the same beginning, middle, end. It's like wah wah. At least I hear this from couples, that it can become a bit routine and a bit boring over time. And so I thought it might be a fun topic for us to talk about. How do you spice things up? How do you have those hard conversations? And how do you not take it so personal? I mean, sex, it's so funny. When I do premarital counseling and we talk about expectations around sex, I can tell the couples get real itchy and uncomfortable when we talk about two things: sex and finances.
That's right. Yeah.
Everybody gets a little bit more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I tell them, like, if you don't love Chinese food, but you love Mexican, are you embarrassed? Are you embarrassed to tell your husband, like, oh, I don't really like Chinese food, but I love chips and salsa. And like, no, of course not. You have preferences, right?
Right.
We all have preferences. And yet it seems like so many couples struggle with communicating their preferences in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Do you find that? I find that a lot.
I don't really see a ton of that because I don't think they talk about it very often. And so a lot of times what will happen is that once the marriage starts being in a bad place, then they'll, when we're examining what's really going on, sometimes underneath that is the same old with sex. And people find it hard to understand that your sex life after 10 years, 12 years, 20 years of marriage is not going to be quite as wild or over the top as it was in the very beginning. And the reason for that is that when you first start dating somebody and you really like them and you're really attracted to them, and maybe you've gotten out of another relationship that wasn't good, and so you're really excited about the new relationship, and you start being sexual with that person, your brain is going to release a lot more pheromones or positive neurotransmitters that because it's new and because
that's really important.
Yeah. So it's not, so then people are like, well, I mean, it was so great in the beginning, but now we don't do it as often, for example. And I mean, when you're first dating somebody and you're feeling like you really like this person and you're really attracted to them, you think, oh, it'll never change. We will be going, 3 times a day for the rest of our lives. And that just is an unrealistic expectation, which is going to set you up for resentment and disappointment because it's just going to change.
Yes.
Because it's one of the things that happens, we get energized when we're in a beginning phase of a relationship. It takes 4 to 6 months for the marketing phase to end, and there is a marketing phase.
For sure.
I'm marketing me, you're marketing you, and then you get into just the reality phase, and so you're going, it's kind of like you've ridden up gone up the hill, and then you're going down, and you feel like you're going down so quickly that there must be something wrong. And it really doesn't mean that at all. What it means is that it's change. One thing that happens in a relationship, you're in the beginning phase of a relationship, people are energized.
Yeah.
They have a ton of energy. They're up for anything. They can stay up late, and they
can talk all night.
They want to talk all night, and they want to go do an activity every minute of the day and all of that.
It's yes, of course. I love that.
Yeah, and then the partner's like, oh, right, I finally found somebody that wants to do everything that I want to do, and they never get tired or any of that. And then it's like, oh, and then they go down the hill. And then they're like, what? Were you just BSing me? Were you just, were you acting? And you're like, no, it's just different. Because
like your brain is different.
Your brain is different, and your body, your energy is different. When it's kind of like when you go on a trip, the day before your trip, you are so freaking excited, and you have built up this fantasy of how it's going to all be and everything. And then you go on the trip, and you're there for, 7 days, and it rains, and you've had some disappointments, or maybe you've gotten a little bit of diarrhea from the food or whatever it is. And then you come off the trip, and you feel like it wasn't like what you think it was, because if you go up, you're going to hit a downslope. And that is absolutely going to happen with sex. Now, what I do see a lot is that when a woman is not, and men can, for the most part, maintain their ability to have an erection and have sex, as depending on their age or what their diet's like, and if they exercise. But if they're in good health and that sort of thing, they can tend to have that a little longer than maybe a woman, because women are a lot of women don't sit around and fantasize about having sex every day after you've been in that marketing phase, or you're out of that marketing phase. So then, but the guy can tend to do it a little longer because... Are
you talking about thinking or fantasizing, or the act of sex itself?
It's all related. So the thinking about it and the fantasizing about it is that may last a little longer. And if the guy looks at porn or anything like that, then they'll be able to, if they're, that's a whole nother subject. But well, actually, it is kind of applicable to this, because if a guy is looking at porn, then, and he's masturbating, then, he's going to get in the bed, and he's going to feel pretty relieved, and he'll be tired, and he'll be ready to go to sleep. So and there are a lot of women who it's not okay to them for their husband to look at pornography.
Yep.
And they're not going to be sexual with them if they're going to, if they're looking at pornography, then what a lot of women will think is that, well, there's another woman in our relationship.
Yep.
I want to be the source of that.
Right.
But so then the guy's looking at pornography, and there's got, it's different.
And they're being satiated or satisfied by the pornography versus their wife.
Because they ejaculate.
Right.
They masturbate.
Right.
So then they're like, okay, well, she doesn't do that for me anymore quite like that. Well, no, because it's a different thing. This chick on your phone, she doesn't like you. She doesn't know you. She doesn't care.
She doesn't do your laundry. She
is not going to brag about the size of your hoo-ha, because if it's a video and it's an exchange video to where she's watching you and you're watching him, she's going to be filling you full of a lot of stuff because she wants you coming back to her site, because that's how they make money.
That's right.
So it's all... one of the things that is so important in a marriage is that you are able to talk about your frustrations. If your husband is looking at pornography and that doesn't work for you, then you need to tell him that.
That's exactly
because
right.
it will kill your sex life.
Yep.
If you keep that inside, because it
Absolutely.
feels like you're in competition with somebody else.
Yeah, I would not be, and I'm very communicative about pornography in my relationships. I always have been, because I don't have a place for that in my relationship.
I don't either.
I don't like that. And I do think it would have a negative impact on my sexuality and our sex life.
Well, one of the things that women are so important to women is that they are flattered by their husband or their partner, and that they are telling you that you're beautiful, or saying that you're good in bed, and that they're totally satisfied with you, and if it's a competition between you, if you feel like it's a competition between you and this person on the phone or whatever, it's not going to work. And so for guys, you got to be careful with it, because women will get the vibe that you're doing it. They'll figure it out. I guarantee it. And they're not going to probably be happy about it unless they just don't want to have sex with you anymore. And then they're like, okay, I don't care what you do. And there are some couples that have that, that have that kind of a stance with it. So, but you have to talk about it. One of the things for women too that is harder for women to communicate about what they like and what they don't like.
I've noticed
in their bedroom,
with
with their husband or their partner or their boyfriend or whatever.
Why do you think so?
Well, I just think because we've been taught not to talk about it.
And you think, I get a sense that if a woman is not demanding, or expressive about, oh, I really like it when you do this, or I don't like it when you do that, which is like I was talking about, like why can't I have preferences in bed?
Oh, you do.
We do.
Everybody does.
Everybody does. Just like I gave the Chinese food and Mexican food analogy.
Yeah.
Like, just like I have food preferences, I also have preferences in bed. But I have witnessed that if women become expressive about that, they feel a little timid. And I haven't had anybody say this to me, but my assumption, the energy that I'm picking up is it might feel like a little slutty, like.
Yeah, and that's the one place you should be slutty.
Yeah.
You can be slutty.
Exactly.
I mean,
like,
and that can be.
Why does this girl have preferences? Like, why does she know that? Like, what is she's had a lot of sex? And it's like, no, I just know what I like.
And
you're not. You can be a slut with your husband or your significant other. Like, go crazy. Talk about what you like.
And talk about what you don't like too, because there's a couple of.
It's really important.
Yeah, and if you are saying yes when you want to say no about doing certain things in your relationship, and you don't like it and it doesn't feel good, I mean,
do not do it.
Do not do it, because it won't work.
I think that would be awful.
Yeah, it would be awful. And and that's another one of the downsides if there is pornography. Even if there's even if some women will watch pornography with their husband, and if that's what you decide, if that's what the two of you decide to do, then that's fine. I mean, because it will stimulate both of you probably. But sometimes in pornography you'll have something happen like, in a nut, like in the bobo. that might like the woman that's on the pornography is thinking this feels great, and then if it gets anywhere near, and if it gets anywhere near the bobo, you might die. Feels like, so it's very careful, and you want to honor one another, and you want to be
absolutely, and
you want to be respective.
Totally.
Of one another.
Have you ever had a partner suggest something? How many partners? What's your body count? Did you know that? No. I'm not asking.
Maybe 1,000. I'm not sure.
When Anna Print told me that now the kids call it body count, I was like, like, what's your body count? I was like, what does that mean? Like, it's how many people you've slept. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, these are the words my children. I pray they don't have a body count. Was actually talking about somebody else. Her body count's like, I'm like, what does that mean? I don't know. Anyway, but have you ever had, and you don't need to go into detail or to get, but I think it would be a nice thing to offer a remedy if you have you ever had a partner suggest something sexually to you that you guys engage in something and you were like, absolutely not?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So how did you handle that?
I said, no, I'm not going to do that.
And did they try to pressure you or put the heat on you?
Yes. This was not Tom. This was somebody else. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he was weird. And I mean, and he was not happy because I said, I'm just not going to do that. Mm-hmm. And, we broke up. I mean, it was not, it was something, I was like, okay, yeah, no, the fact that you're even asking me that is a no-go, is a red flag.
Yeah. Is a deal breaker.
And, I think if people, is sometimes as people have been married for, years and years and years and years, your sex life can get kind of stale. Mm-hmm. Like I know quite a few people who wear costumes. Mm-hmm. And I can't imagine Tom dressing up.
I literally was about to start
policeman.
I know people do this, but
they do.
I would just get the giggles. I would just be like, what the hell?
You're under arrest. I have to handcuff you.
Let me listen to your heart. That old
the nurses.
nurse.
But there are people who do that, and that is just
totally
so
go
fun.
for it. I'm actually kind of jealous that works. I would laugh. I would laugh so hard. I just think I'm pretty simple.
Yeah.
I think the biggest part for me when it comes to this conversation, and I think something that I really appreciate in a partner, is just not being afraid to talk about it.
Yes, and not being afraid to say no.
Yes.
I'm so tired.
Or you hurt my feelings.
Yeah. Or
I'm upset right now. And sex is the last thing I want to do with you.
And a lot of times, I'm glad you actually said that, Tova, because that's real important, because men, a lot of times, they will, if you're in a fight, they're like, okay, let's go do that because that's going to fix it.
Because that means everything's okay.
But the women are like, are you kidding? Mm-hmm. I'm not interested at all. So for just information's sake, women tend to be much more sexually interested when there's not some underlying thing going on.
1,000%.
And so if it's so, and what a lot of women will do is we will just breathe and say, okay, well, this is just the way it is. So this, whatever dysfunction is going on in the marriage, or if they're upset about something and they don't bring it up, then that just harbors inside of them. And that will really do a number, because you're just not, for the most part, women want to be sexual because of the relationship, whereas men want to be sexual for the sex. They care about the relationship a lot, but theirs is more sex first, relationship is a result. For women, it's the relationship is good, so therefore sex is a result. So it's kind of a flip-flop.
Absolutely. There's I've seen a client recently who has been having problems with she and her boyfriend. They've been dating for a long time, and he has children, and he has an ex-wife. She has an ex-husband, but she does not have children. They live together, and the ex-wife is an issue for in their relationship. And she often feels slighted because of their relationship. They're really good friends. Like, she'll come home sometimes and the ex-wife is in the kitchen and they're giggling, or she feels marginalized and doesn't feel like the priority in his relationship. You know, it's really about his kids first, and then maybe the ex-wife, maybe her, like, she just does not feel protected. And I said to her, what would you do? Like, what would be different for you if you did feel protected, if he did, like, prioritize you? She was like, I would pull down his pants and I would give him a blowjob. And I go, like, I mean, she was joking and I laughed, but it's not far from the connection. What she's saying is what you're saying is, when we feel appreciated, loved, safe, secure, prioritized, that makes a big difference in our desire to have sex. The connection
absolutely
is
there cannot be another woman that has priority over you, whether it's an ex, whether it's a friend. I had a client who was in a running club, and I mean, they ran in the mountains in Colorado and everything. And, you know, and she was such good friends with all these guys that she ran with. And her husband was furious about it because, and I don't think she was sexual with them, but they were her primary relationship. And so I think, so, you know, I have an ex-husband and Tom has an ex-wife. And if I felt like Zuma, his ex-wife, if I felt like Zuma was a priority over me, that would not work for me.
Oh, God, no.
And I know that Tom would not want Kurt to be a priority over him.
I think the only reason that Zuma and Kurt have a place at your table is because there is absolutely no doubt in your mind and in Tom's mind that the two of you are the priority in the relationship.
Yes, that's right.
And that security that exists between the two of you allows room for them to be there because there's a very clear boundary in the relationship.
Right.
Where I think that it can get really blurry and hard and deeply affect the sex life is when that line gets blurry, especially because you have had intercourse with that person.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if I didn't have a very clear boundary with Topher and Craig, knowing that I have been very intimate with him for for years of my life, that would be awful for Craig.
Yeah.
Awful for Craig.
Well, you cannot have another woman be your primary loyalty, even your mother.
Oh,
it cannot be your mother. It cannot be your mother, your grandmother, your ex-wife. It has to be your partner.
Yeah.
Because if not,
it's not going to work.
No, and honestly and truly, the woman will not have any interest in being sexual.
Yeah,
it really has, because it just feels like, wait, where am I in this hierarchy of value? You know, and so that's really important. And if you are feeling this way with your boyfriend or your husband, talk to them about it, because some guys have a huge deal with their moms too.
Oh, yes, they do.
And you know,
that's probably one of the things that I counsel with people the most is the enmeshment with with the mother-in-law. And God, if you're one of those moms, leave those children alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Let them live. There's a couple that I'm counseling right now, and God, the mother of the son is just, I mean, she cries all the time about how much she misses him, and I mean, the drama because of I love you so much, and like she calls him these like little nicknames. Like I'm like, oh my God, like that would be incredibly difficult for me.
Well, it would totally eradicate any attraction that you had because because he's acting like he's a little boy.
Yeah.
And I think that's why our sex lives with your partner, husband, boyfriend, whatever, it's so important that we respect that and that we're mindful of that. And if Tom ever came in and said, you know what, I'm tired of Kurt being here for Christmas and Thanksgiving and birthdays and all of that, or
can't the girls just go celebrate with him by themselves?
Yeah, and like Kurt drove Blair and I out to Owen's basketball game in McKinney. It was so far. and if Tom ever said, I don't like that, I'd be like, okay.
Oh yeah.
That's fine.
100%.
I
would.
And that just the fact that I know that he would have my back on that.
It's so important.
It just doesn't care. It just wouldn't matter.
Yep.
Because you feel valued.
Absolutely.
And of all of the things in a relationship, what I believe, Tova, I don't know if you agree with this or not, is that I feel valued, which means my opinion matters, what I like matters, what I don't like matters, and vice versa. That it's very important that Tom feel that too.
Absolutely. And I love that you said that. One of the things that I have seen in counseling and probably experienced personally, it's why it's probably powerful to me, is I don't like it when people, like if a woman or a man are sitting in my living room expressing something that's important to them that their partner does or does not do, and their partner, instead of listening, understanding, getting curious, valuing what they're valuing, and they say, well, you know what, that's just not me. We're different. We're just different.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody's asking me to act outside of my value system, no, I'm not going to betray myself. But, Craig has told me one time, he only had to tell me one time, that there was a relationship that I had with a male that he didn't like. He's like, I don't like that friendship. And I'm like, over. Done.
Yeah.
Like, I can change that. And out of respect, do I think that there's anything inappropriate going on between me and this man? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But I saw nothing wrong with our friendship.
Yeah.
But it made him uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so what did I do? I changed course.
Yeah.
I course corrected, and that friendship has been completely different ever since. If I had said the same to him and he said to me, well, that's just not me. Like, we're just different. Like, you don't have friendships with males or whatever it is. If he did not value my request, that would be very difficult for me.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to want to jump in the bed with them because when you're being sexual, I mean, sometimes people will just have a, slam bam, thank you, ma'am, quickie, which is, there's certainly nothing wrong with that.
No.
But the whole act of being really intimate with someone that you love and you respect is so valuable in your relationship.
It is.
And we want to honor that, and we can honor that, but it has to be, you have to talk about it.
Yeah.
All of these things, because it does matter. And some people are more immodest than others. Some people are real modest, and so you want to honor that with one another.
That's a great point to make.
Yeah, and you want to be careful about your kids listening, and that's
gosh.
what I have so many young mothers who are like, I'm just so tired all the time, and
And there's always somebody on my leg.
I know, and I'm like,
somebody at the
I know
door.
it'll be better, I promise. But it really is important, and it is something that you can have a huge impact on. and I encourage you to really, if there's something that's bothering you about your sex life, make sure you talk to your partner about it.
Yeah.
Because getting that up and out instead of rattling around in your brain will really help.
Oh yeah. And we all have thoughts about sex.
Sure.
And we all have preferences with sex, and we all have feelings about sex. I was doing premarital counseling with a couple that had been dating for 7 years, Janice.
Oh, wow.
And which is great. I mean,
Yeah.
And they were getting married, and they were living together. And they had, the fidgeting and the uncomfortableness because one of the things I talk about is expectations. Their expectations around certain things. And one of the subjects is sex. What do I expect from you, and what can you expect from me? And so I'll ask questions. I don't have any problem talking about sex.
Yeah.
I expect you to be faithful sexually. I expect us to have an active sex life. Okay, what define active?
Yeah.
I expect you to be faithful. Okay, what's faithful to you? Like, is pornography cheating to you? Like, let's talk about that. I mean, the uncomfortable. I expect us to be frequent. I expect us to try new things. And so I asked questions, and I said to them, I can tell this is making you really uncomfortable. And I said, do you guys ever talk about sex? No. Have you ever talked about sex? No. You've never one time said, oh, I like it when you do. No. You've never said, I prefer da-da-da, or God, that was amazing. No. 7 years. And they had never said one word to one another about their sex life.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, and these are young people.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Do you I don't have no idea how we are on time.
It's time.
Yeah.
It's 2:15.
Okay, can I ask you one quick question?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think it's an important one around sex.
Yeah.
Do you think that people can have sex, meaningless sex? Do you think people can just screw each other? That one night stands really don't mean anything? Or don't have to mean anything?
I think some people can do that.
Do you mean in a relationship?
No. I mean, like, if you're single or you're not single, whatever, can you just go to a bar, meet somebody, screw them without any consequence to like, say there's no consequence with the relationship, but to your soul, to your being, do you think that there are people who just have that switch?
Well, I think that
who can just screw people.
Well, I think that there are people who build up a tolerance for the guilt. I think that most people would feel some. I think, especially women. I think women, we would feel more guilty sooner than a guy. I think guys think that they can just go when they're younger, But I even don't really think that if we could get them to really talk, I don't think that would be really what they do. I think people do feel guilty if they're not acting in their value system. And some people are told that, it's just sex, but
I think some people say that.
But it's the most, it's one of the most interpersonal things you can ever do because it's so skin on skin.
I think it's the most...
And it's amazing.
Vulnerable.
Yeah, you're very vulnerable. So, I don't know.
I think in this modern time, there's apps out there that are specifically geared for just a hookup. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I've got a friend of mine that I play golf with that's recently divorced, and he's on a couple of apps, and he's got like 2 or 3 girlfriends right now that's all they do is just hook up. And he's like 55 and he's way okay with it. And then of course there's college kids that are like, that's all they're doing is just hooking up and moving on to the next one. So,
But I wonder if you
that
really
certainly isn't the traditional method and the way that we've all thought about it. I mean,
Well, I agree with you, Tom, and I think that's why I wanted to ask, because I think sex is so pervasive. I mean, these girls that I have counseled that are in college, like they'll be making out with a guy and they're not dating, they're just barely met, and the guy's like, "You want me to get a condom?" It's like, it's sex. It is so no big deal in our world today for so many people.
I honestly and truly think that if you got people that I have a client who was on one of those sites and was one of those girls that just had sex with this guy, and he would leave and have sex with somebody else, and she would have sex with somebody else, and blah 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 blah. And when she came in and we started talking about it, and she really allowed herself
To feel.
Mm-hmm. Then she said, "I feel." The word she used was icky. And I said, well, that's shame, because I don't know, because she was upset because the guy stopped calling her, even though he was, So I don't know. I think men are conditioned in so many ways to not feel, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Because I can only speak from me, and what I know is I could not have sex with anybody without it at a soul level having a consequence, good or bad.
Yeah.
Funny enough, though, is the show Sex and the City, which I thought was hilarious.
I never watched it.
Men that are listening, if you want some insight into women, that show will give you plenty. But there was literally 4 women on there, and one of them, a quarter of the girls, she was representing that sort of sluttier woman, Samantha.
Yeah.
And she was way okay. Like, that was her thing. It was kind of the comic relief was watching her just be out there for everybody, and just kind of, she was all about sex. And although at the end, I feel like I didn't see the movies or if there was a remake. I just remember the original show. She definitely, at the end of the show, she seemed like she was wanting to hook up with somebody, but the first few seasons, she was representing that sex-only faction of women out there.
Yeah, and I don't, I mean, if you really were to sit down with somebody who was actually doing that and you really talked with them about it, I think you would find very few women who would feel okay about doing that. Because I have a client who was a prostitute, and I mean, she made thousands of dollars, and she and I had that discussion, and she said,
I can't even imagine how difficult that life would be.
She said it was, no, and it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't trash. I mean, it was, expensive hookups,
high end,
yeah. And and she said it. And by this time, when we were talking, as she was looking back on it, and she was like, "Yeah, it was really never okay with me.
Yeah,
I just had to fake it." Yeah. So I don't know.
I would venture to believe that at a core level over anything else. And I just think that I think sex has always been pervasive. I think that there's just more vehicles, these days.
It's easier.
Yeah, it's easier to get access to sex in all different ways, and in ways that I'm sure I've never even heard of exist, because I'm pretty vanilla. But anyway, well, I think this is so helpful. I think a lot of people struggle with this.
Yeah, me too.
On lots of levels. So I hope that there were some nuggets in there for all of our listeners. We hope that you have a wonderful week, and thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Tom, you were kind of quiet on the sex combo.
I just remember Bobo.